Alright, so for the problems on this worksheet, you are going to use this formula right here, the sum of the finite geometric series. And so here we have the series. I've got a sub 1 is 4, that's because 4 is the first number or the first term in the series. N is 7 because in the problem it says find S sub 7, so that means they want you to add the first 7 numbers or first 7 terms. And so we just have to find the R. So the R, what do you multiply to get from here to here? So to get from here to here, you multiply by 2. So R is 2. So now we just plug it into the formula. S sub 7 is, the first number times 1 minus the ratio to the 7th power over 1 minus the ratio. So that's 4 times 1 minus, now 2 to the 7th, 2 to the 5th is 32, 64, 128. And if you don't know it quickly, just get a calculator. And 1 minus 2, negative 1, so that's 4 over, now 1 minus 128 is negative 127, over negative 1 is positive 127. So you plug this into a calculator, and you get 508. Whoops. Not 580. So S sub 7 is 508. For letter B, the first term is 1, so that's why you see 1 right here. They're asking for S sub 13, so we're adding 13 terms. And then for the ratio, what do you multiply 1 by to get negative 6? So 1 times negative 6. So the common ratio is negative 6. Okay, so you do S sub 13 is the first number times 1 minus negative 6 to the 13th power all over 1 minus negative 6. And this is where you have to use a calculator. There's just no other way. 1 times anything is itself, but I'll just keep writing it. And I know the denominator is going to be 7 because 1 minus negative 6 is 7. So when you plug in negative 6 to the 13th power, you get a number. It's longer than this. I just wrote the first two numbers, but it keeps going, times 10 to the 10th. So I'm going to keep this number on the screen and subtract 1 from it, right? And so that's going to leave me with a negative answer. And so and the bottom is positive, right? Because 1 minus negative 6 is positive 7. So the numerator is negative and the denominator is positive. So my final answer is going to be negative. So you keep this on the screen, minus 1, and we know the result is negative, and then divided by positive 7. So you should have this as your answer. So let me write it down. It's a long number. 1, 3, 3, 1. Okay, so 1,865,813,431. Alright, so the A sub 1 is 486 because that's the first term right here. We're adding the first 17 terms because they're asking for S sub 17. And then for the ratio, I could take any two consecutive numbers here, these two or these two or these two, and just put the later one over the previous one. So this is what I mean. Let's say I'm going to take these two right here. I'll put 18 over 54. So that's going to be 1/3. So my ratio is 1/3. Okay, and I'll keep it as 1/3 for now. So I'm going to do, let me just put the formula down. S sub 17 equals the first number times 1 minus 1/3 to the 17th power over 1 minus 1/3. Like that. Okay. Alright, so the next step, what I did is I took the calculator and I raised 3 to the 17th power. Well, 1 to the 17th power is 1. So that's why the numerator is still 1. Because remember, the 17 is applied in the numerator and then in the denominator. So 1 to the 17th power is 1. 3 to the 17th power is 129,140,163. So that's your denominator right there. Down here, 1 minus 1/3 is 2/3. So the next step, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this fraction up here in the numerator. Okay? Alright, so what you see on the screen now is this fraction right here. That's what you get when you subtract this from 1. Because 1 is written with this in the denominator and the numerator, right? You get a common denominator and it's this over this. So when you subtract 1 from this number, you end up with this number. And here's the denominator. So the next step after that is when you divide by a fraction, it's actually multiplying by its reciprocal. So I'm going to take the 2/3, so I'm 486 time, and it's over 1, right? The one with the big lot of numbers there. The millions, 4,162 over 129, 140, 163 times 3 over 2, because I am multiplying by the reciprocal of this. This is what dividing fractions really means. Multiplying by the reciprocal of this. Okay? So I know that 2 goes into 486 243 times. And I also know that 3 divides the denominator. Okay, so 3 goes into 3 once, and into this number, 43,046,721. Okay, so now you just multiply. So these are all right here. This is also 1, right? So you have, we're multiplying this by this and dividing by this on the calculator. Alright, and when you put this all into a calculator, you get approximately, because you're going to get a decimal that you're going to round, 728.999. So 99, and it keeps going 99, so you could say approximately 729. Okay, so for letter D, you have the a sub 1 is 3, that's the first term. N is 6 because we're adding 6 numbers together. And then R, 3 times what gives you 15? Well, 3 times 5. So R is 5. So we set it up, S sub 6 equals the first number, first term, times 1 minus 5 to the 6th power over 1 minus 5. Okay? And so you take 5 to the 6th and put in the calculator. So that's 3, 1 minus 15,625 divided by 1 minus 5 is negative 4. So now you have 3 times negative 15,624, because you do 1 minus 15,625 over negative 4. So the negative over the negative cancels. Okay, and so now you multiply and then divide by 4. And you get S sub 6 is 11,718. Alright, so for number 4, they don't list the, they don't give you the series written out, but they give you all the information you need. So you have 9 numbers that you're adding together, so that's going to be S sub 9 equals the first number times 1 minus the ratio to the 9th power over 1 minus the ratio. Okay, so that's 6 times, and this is negative 1 down here. So you take 2 to the 9th on the calculator, and that gives you 512. So when you subtract 1 from it, you get negative 511 over negative 1. So negative over negative is positive again. So 511 times 6 is 3,066. And that's your S sub 9. Now on letter B, they tell you f of 1 is 2, so that means the first term is 2. Okay, so even though they didn't call it A, f of 1 is still your A. That's your first term, so it's 2. So we're ready to set up the equation or the formula. S sub 12 is the first number times 1 minus the ratio to the nth over 1 minus the ratio. So be careful, that ratio is negative, so in the denominator you know your signs are going to change. So it's 2 over, or 2 times, 1 minus the negative 2 in the denominator is 3, and then 1 minus, now negative 2 to the 12th power is going to give me a positive number. It's going to be 4,096. Oops, why did I write mine? 4,096. So we're subtracting it from 1, so that's going to be 2 times negative 4,095 over 3. Okay, 3 goes into 4,095. So I'm going to smooth it up a little bit. So that's going to be 2 times, and you could just put it into the calculator if you want. So it's going to be negative 1365 times 2. So it's going to be S sub 12 equals negative 10, 12, 13, 6, 7, 2. Negative 2,730. Alright, so for letter C, you have R is negative 3. Again, f of 1 is 729, means that A sub 1 is 729. And then you're doing 15 terms. So I've already set up the equation, the formula. So now it's 729. 1. Now, negative 3 to the 15th is actually a negative number, right? Negative 15 negatives multiplied together is negative. And then there's a negative right here, this one right here that I'm darkening. And so that makes it 1 plus. And that's going to be 14,348,907. All over 1 minus negative 3 is 4. So we're going to add these together. So we're going to add a 1 to it. And we get 729. 14,348,908. We're going to divide that by 4. And 729. And it's going to be 3,587,227. And we're going to multiply that by 729. And we get S sub 15 equals 2,615,088,483. Alright, so here's the last one. The setup is right there. And so we're going to take 2,700. 1 minus 10 to the 8th. 10 to the 8th is 100 million. So it's going to be 1 minus 1, 2, all over negative 9. And 1 minus 100 million is, so 2,700 negative 99. Should I put in enough 9s? Yeah. All over negative 9. So negative over negative is positive. And you divide the 99,999,999 by 9. And that gives you, and then don't forget the 270, 11,111,111. You multiply that by 270. So the answer is 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So here's the answer. 2,999,909,970.